Welcome to Subramani. I'm going to talk about switching from fund A to fund B. Why people do switching. So largely there are 2-3 reasons why people do switching. One, the fund is not performing well, so you say, okay, this fund is not performing well, so I switch out of this fund. The other reason why you switch out of the fund is to say, oh, fund is doing very well last 2-3 years, so I know going forward it can't do so well, so I'm switching from that fund. These are two reasons which most people understand. There is another reason why you switch. Suppose you are invested in Franklin India Blue Chip or a HDFC Top 100 or a iPro Discovery, and that fund has done very well over the past say 20 years. You have done your SIP and that amount has become 40% of your AUM. 40% of your AUM looks very different when you have an AUM of 10 lakhs and looks very different when you have an AUM of 10 crores. So assuming you have 10 crores and you have 4 crores in say iPro Discovery, or you have an HDFC balance fund or something like that, you are wondering whether it is too risky to be 40% in one fund. Or I'm not even talking of balance fund. Okay, let's talk of HDFC Flexi Cap or HDFC Top 100. Then what happens is you switch out of that fund into a hybrid fund or a multi-asset fund, not to improve returns. Let me repeat, not to improve returns but to reduce risk. You started all this when you were 30 and 25 years you have been doing. Now you are 55 years of age and this fund has done very well. Whichever, I mean, you could take any fund. It could be Nippon Growth Fund, it could be UTI Master Share, any fund which has done very well. You have stayed on it for 25 years, but what has happened is, as a percentage of your portfolio, it has become too big. It's 40% of your portfolio or 35% of your portfolio. So you need to reduce the dependence on one single fund, because if something goes wrong with the fund, then you might not look so smart after all. So that is another reason why you should be switching funds. Another reason to switch funds is when you are in the dividend mode, you have to go from dividend mode to growth mode, because dividend is now inefficient. So you should have done it maybe 3 months ago, 6 months ago, 1 year ago, whenever dividends were made taxable. And dividends used to have TDS also, so that used to be pretty messy. So always go for growth option. I've done a video on growth option or dividend option. If you have not seen it, I can just repeat it. I think growth option is best. Don't go for dividend option, go for growth option, and after 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, whenever you need the money, do a systematic withdrawal plan. You don't need the dividends at all. Even after retirement, you don't need the dividends. You need cash flow. Please understand, you need cash flow. It doesn't mean you need dividends. Therefore, you continue to be in the growth option and start withdrawing on a monthly basis, quarterly basis, whatever it is, a regular sum of money, and that will come into your account directly. That is called a systematic withdrawal. So you can do that. So largely one more thing which happens is, at the age of 60, I may ask a client or a friend to shift from a pure equity fund to a balanced fund with about 30% in debt and 70% in equity. And after some time, I may ask him or her to shift to a 70% in debt and 30% in equity, right? All these combinations are available as balanced funds. So you shift from an equity fund to a balanced fund with large equity, and then to another balanced fund with large debt. What you are trying to do is to reduce the volatility. Another thing which happens is, suppose you need 5 crores for retirement and your portfolio is already at 8 crores. The need to have equity in your portfolio goes down. So dramatically start reducing the amount of equity that you have. If you know how to handle equity and you are happy doing it, then it's a different thing. Otherwise, sorry. So the other reason to shift from equity to debt is also that you are reducing the risk in your portfolio. Well, technically, should you shift anyway tactically from equity to debt because you think that the equity markets are going to fall and debt is going to do well? My answer is no, because 1 year's return of debt can be made up by equity in 1 month, right? So that's very scary that you shifted to debt and you look very smart for 3 months. Then in the 4th month, the market went up by 9% or 10%. And that's your annual or 1.5 year return on debt. So don't pitch yourself against that. Anyway, shift from debt or from equity to debt or equity to hybrid or a multi-asset or anything like that. All that is fine, but you should do with a particular reason, not just to think, oh, now I think equities are high, so let me quit. Because 1 month ago we all thought equity was high, equity was not moving up anywhere, but then in 1 month it moved up 9%, right? So 9% is perhaps the return for 15-18 months in a debt fund. So these things keep happening. So don't worry about what the market will do. Don't worry about whether you should invest or repay the debt. Obviously you should invest and not repay the debt, provided you have 20 years to repay. Then there is no reason to repay, because over 20 years definitely equity funds will do well. However, I tell you, don't invest, repay the loan. I will look like a genius if the market falls 25% or your portfolio falls 25%. It will look like, wow, I removed 100 rupees and reduced 100 rupees of debt. If I had still been invested, that would have become 75. So I look like a genius, but it is just luck. If I tell you don't invest, don't repay, invest, and the market goes up 25%, again I look like a genius. But please remember, over long periods of time, say 18 years, 20 years, definitely your equity returns will be higher than the cost of your home loan, right? So over 3 years you can look very smart by repaying, over 5 years you can look very dumb by repaying. So this allocation, asset allocation between equity and debt and real estate is an art. And if you have enough money, then it doesn't really matter whether you do it or you don't do it. But if you don't have enough money, I would keep on going quickly into debt based or rather a hybrid fund which is more debt based from my very well performing equity funds. Why would I do that? To reduce risk, not to improve return. So for a 55-year-old, I may be looking at reducing risk and not really at improving return. Though I personally may think, oh, this is a great time to be in equity, but I would do it just because of that person's age, or that person is in a dividend scheme and has to move to a growth scheme. Any of these could be the reason. So you should, when your financial analyst or financial planner tells you to shift, you should ask him, why are you asking me to shift? What is the reason? Then analyze the reason, and that could be it. And actually the advisor, if he's an MFD, could actually reduce his income also, because in equity funds, if the fund performs well, his income would be higher than in a balanced fund or in a debt oriented balanced fund. But he has to do that to reduce the risk in your portfolio. So find out, ask him or her why they are doing this, and then write it down, so that after 3 months or 6 months or 2 years, you hold him by his neck and say, oh well, this is what we did, this is what has happened, now what should we take any remedial action, or should we just let things lie, right? Thank you.